My fellow citizens of Burkina Faso, look around you. See what our people, especially our brave women, are doing with their own hands.
At this point, I think Ibrahim Traore should be studied. And I think he should be studied by the best of experts. Because what this guy is doing at this point, this guy is after a lot of people. And he's not after them physically. This guy is mentally after a lot of incompetent leaders in Africa. A lot of incompetent, disgruntled leaders in Africa. Because when they talked about this 5,000-kilometer pavement of road, I didn't believe. I just believed that, okay, it's the Sahel. They are just going to clear the bushes and all of that. And they were going to be walking on dust and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy Traore, he has taken the construction to a whole nother level.
They said it couldn't be done without foreign money. Burkina Faso just proved them wrong, and it's changing Africa's future. Something remarkable is unfolding in Burkina Faso, though you might not hear much about it on international news. While the rest of the world looks elsewhere, Captain Ibrahim Traoré and the people of Burkina Faso have been quietly making history. It all started with a promise that sounded too big to believe, a major road project stretching thousands of kilometers, funded and built entirely by Burkina Faso itself. When talk of this 5,000-kilometer road network first surfaced, many were skeptical. Locals joked that it probably meant clearing some bushes so people could continue walking on dirt paths. Even seasoned observers doubted anything beyond patchwork improvements. But what's happening now has surprised everyone, including the citizens who once doubted it most. Under the scorching West African sun, something extraordinary is taking shape. Not just any road, but a powerful new symbol of independence, crafted without foreign contractors, without imported cement, without any hidden strings attached. It's a road built by Burkina Faso, with Burkina Faso's hands, materials, and money. And that changes everything. For the first time in living memory, a major infrastructure project in Burkina Faso has been planned, funded, executed, and completed entirely by its own people. Local engineers drew the designs. Local companies supplied every ton of cement and steel. Local workers, from architects to truck drivers, laid down the miles of concrete. It's a road paved with pride as much as it is with gravel. No foreign aid, no external debts, no signature plaques from global agencies. This project stands as a direct challenge to the long-held narrative that Africa can't build for itself without Western money and oversight. In a continent still heavily reliant on foreign loans for basic infrastructure, Burkina Faso is carving out a new path, literally and figuratively. The road itself is impressive. Over 120 kilometers connect two major towns in a region that had long been cut off by rough terrain. Farmers, traders, and families in dozens of rural villages now have an artery that links them to markets, hospitals, schools, and each other. It means produce can move quickly, businesses can reach new customers, and communities once left behind are finally plugged into the nation's economic life. But the real story isn't the asphalt or the concrete. It's how this road came to be. Every stone, every beam of steel, every drop of bitumen was sourced from inside Burkina Faso. Local suppliers boomed. Small industries that once struggled for contracts suddenly found themselves flooded with orders. Cement factories ran day and night. Toolmakers expanded their operations. Along the way, thousands of Burkinabés got jobs. Young engineers, fresh out of college, gained critical experience, building skills that will serve them for decades. This was a national effort. Villages along the route didn't just watch the construction. They were hired to provide support services, security, meals, and materials. That means money stayed in the local economy instead of vanishing into the coffers of foreign firms. International observers, many of whom quietly rolled their eyes when the project began, are now forced to reconsider. Not only did the road get finished, it was completed ahead of schedule, under budget, and at a quality that matches international standards. The question on many minds is simple. How did they pull it off? The answer comes down to something Burkina Faso's leaders call economic common sense. With no foreign companies extracting profits, every franc stayed inside the country. With no middlemen or international bureaucracy, decisions moved quickly. With local workers invested in the outcome, not just as employees but as citizens, the project turned into a matter of national pride. It wasn't just another contract, it was a mission. The ripple effects are already reshaping the nation's economy. Small towns along the road are seeing new markets spring up. Entrepreneurs are setting up roadside businesses. Transport companies are expanding their fleets. With improved roads, farmers can get perishable goods to cities before they spoil, meaning less waste and more income. This is how an infrastructure project becomes a tool of national transformation. For Captain Ibrahim Traore, this road is about more than transport. It's a political declaration, a clear message to former colonial powers and international lenders. Burkina Faso is choosing a different path. No longer will roads come stamped with foreign flags, tied to debts that serve outside interests. From now on, Burkina Faso builds for itself. Not surprisingly, this quiet revolution is attracting attention across the region. Delegations from Mali, Guinea, and Niger have already visited to study how Burkina Faso pulled it off. They want to see firsthand how local labor, local resources, and local financing can create infrastructure without the weight of foreign dependency. If this model spreads, it could mark the beginning of a new chapter for West Africa, one where neocolonial contracts give way to homegrown blueprints, a chapter where Africa starts building for Africa. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, something else is spreading. Pride. Ordinary citizens who once doubted their government now walk these new roads with their heads held high. They see that this isn't just about easier travel, it's about dignity. It's about proving that their country can stand on its own feet. Interestingly, most major Western media outlets have ignored the story, maybe because it doesn't fit the usual script, the idea that Africa must always wait for outside rescue. This success story challenges too many comfortable assumptions. It proves that with unity and purpose, African nations can accomplish feats once thought out of reach. And for Captain Traoré, this road is just the start. More projects are already on the table. Additional roads, new industries, more technical training for young people. Burkina Faso is done waiting for handouts. It is becoming its own solution. One paved kilometer at a time, a new future is being carved from the red earth of West Africa. As the new road weaves through Burkina Faso's countryside, it does more than link cities and villages. It connects stories of farmers who can now reach markets, of schoolchildren who travel safely to class, of local merchants whose businesses finally have a chance to grow. The project's impact is visible in the way life is starting to hum with renewed energy along the road. Before this road, many communities were practically cut off. During rainy seasons, mud and flooding made travel nearly impossible. A trip that should have taken 1 hour could stretch into 6 if it was possible at all. Trucks broke down, produce spoiled, patients couldn't reach hospitals in time. Families remained stuck in cycles of poverty, not because they lacked ambition or skill, but because they were physically stranded. Now, trucks roll steadily over fresh concrete. Buses carry passengers on daily schedules. Small delivery vehicles zip between towns, creating a constant flow of goods and services. Markets that once struggled to fill stalls are thriving with new vendors and customers. It's not just a road, it's an economic artery pumping life into areas long ignored. All of this was achieved without the typical chorus of foreign consultants, white SUVs, or international loan agreements. There were no grand ribbon cuttings with global dignitaries. Instead, the celebration belonged to local chiefs, small business owners, and villagers who lined the road to watch it take shape. Women brought food to the workers, children chased trucks hauling cement, elders offered blessings. It was, in every sense, a people's project. The local ownership of this initiative has had powerful side effects. When citizens see that it's their own government, using their own money, employing their own neighbors, building roads that transform their lives, trust starts to grow. In a country where skepticism toward leadership often runs deep, this tangible achievement is rewriting old narratives. And beyond trust, there's pride. Pride that the road was not another foreign venture, decorated with outside flags. Pride that no one is coming later to demand repayment at crippling interest rates. Pride that Burkina Faso didn't have to beg to build. Instead, it chose to invest in itself, and the returns are already visible. This road is also rebalancing economic power inside the country. Previously, most large-scale infrastructure contracts automatically went to international companies. These firms brought their own equipment, their own senior managers, even their own mid-level technicians. Local workers were often relegated to low-wage, temporary jobs. The profits flew back overseas, draining the country's wealth. By contrast, this time around, everything stayed home. Local quarries ramped up production to meet the demand for stone and gravel. Regional factories received massive orders for steel rebar and concrete pipes. Small businesses won contracts to supply tools, safety gear, and catering for workers. Even local artisans found opportunities, crafting signs, furniture, and decorative finishes. Young graduates in engineering and architecture, who might otherwise have left the country in search of work, got hands-on experience on a project of national importance. They learned by doing, mentored by senior professionals equally invested in the project's success. The skills developed here won't vanish when the last mile is paved. They'll be carried into future projects, building a workforce capable of tackling even more ambitious goals. Communities along the route didn't just watch from the sidelines. They played a direct role, hosting planning meetings and helping shape where service roads and feeder paths would go. In many villages, local labor was hired for support jobs, clearing initial brush, maintaining temporary camps, cooking for crews. That meant families earned steady income for months, often for the first time in years. Meanwhile, local banks managed the financing. This alone is a quiet revolution. Instead of foreign lenders setting repayment terms and dictating conditions, Burkina Faso's financial institutions took the lead, circulating the money within their own economy. Interest payments, instead of draining reserves, became profits for domestic banks, profits they can now use to fund new projects. The broader strategic implications are just as important. For decades, roads in Burkina Faso, like in many African countries, were more than infrastructure. They were instruments of influence. Built with money from foreign powers, they often came tied to political expectations. Roads that led to mining sites served international investors, not always local communities. Highways funded by international agencies sometimes prioritized regional connections that suited global trade more than local needs. This time, the calculus was different. Captain Traore and his administration planned routes that specifically served Burkina Faso's own economic map, connecting farming belts to markets, linking underdeveloped regions to city centers, boosting national cohesion rather than foreign extraction. Of course, this approach hasn't gone unnoticed. In quiet policy circles from Paris to Washington to Beijing, analysts are watching closely. What does it mean if more African nations follow Burkina Faso's lead? If they start saying no to strings-attached loans, choosing local contractors over global giants? It could rewrite the terms of engagement on the continent, shifting leverage back into African hands. Already, neighboring countries are sending study teams. Delegations from Mali, Guinea, and Niger have toured the construction sites, pored over project plans, and met with Burkina Faso's engineers. They've come away impressed by how a nation of modest means pulled off what many said was impossible. And this is just the start. Captain Traore has made clear that this is a blueprint, not a one-off. More roads are planned, alongside local manufacturing zones and new training programs for young technicians. The hope is to build not just infrastructure, but an entire ecosystem of industries and skills that reinforce each other, keeping money and expertise circulating at home. Perhaps the most telling indicator of success is the attitude of ordinary citizens. In roadside interviews, villagers who once viewed national projects with suspicion now speak with ownership. A farmer outside of Bobo Dioulasso proudly told a local journalist, "We built this road. This is ours. My children will drive on it, and they will know it came from our own hands." And as more kilometers open up, more stories like his will unfold. Each one eroding the old narrative that development must be imported, that progress must be managed from outside. In Burkina Faso, a new chapter is being written, one where growth springs from local soil, guided by local hands, serving local dreams. As this new road stretches through Burkina Faso's fields and forests, it doesn't just link 2 points on a map. It links past to future, dependency to self-determination, frustration to hope. People across the country are watching with new eyes, realizing that change isn't just possible, it's already happening, right beneath their feet. Captain Ibrahim Traore understands the deeper significance. In speech after speech, he's pointed out that infrastructure isn't just about moving goods or cutting travel times. It's about power. Roads bring farmers closer to buyers. They carry students to better schools. They connect remote clinics to urban hospitals. They let businesses thrive by cutting transport costs and giving them reliable access to markets. In short, roads bind a nation together, economically and socially. For Burkina Faso, building this road with its own hands means something even more profound. It breaks an old cycle that's trapped many African nations for decades, borrowing from abroad, paying foreign firms to build, then spending years, sometimes generations, repaying loans that did more for creditors than for citizens. Under that model, much of the profit leaves before the first vehicle ever drives on the road. This time, it's different. Every salary paid went into local pockets. Every supply order strengthened a Burkinabe business. The interest on the financing didn't line the coffers of foreign banks. It bolstered domestic lenders, who will now have even more capacity to fund the next local venture. And the skills gained by thousands of engineers, drivers, machine operators, welders, and planners didn't vanish when the last section was paved. They'll stay right here, ready to tackle the next big challenge. No wonder so many people see this road as more than concrete. It's a declaration of sovereignty. It's a bold statement that Burkina Faso intends to chart its own destiny, and it's willing to bet on itself. Not everyone around the world is eager to celebrate this shift. Western media outlets have largely overlooked the project. For them, a story about an African country building successfully without external aid doesn't fit the typical narrative of dependency and crisis. It's easier to focus on problems than on examples of Africans solving them with their own resources. But inside Burkina Faso, the mood is unmistakably different. There's a surge of confidence. Villages along the road have organized community cleanups to keep the new road in top condition. Small towns are already seeing investors set up shops, warehouses, and roadside services. Taxi cooperatives are forming to offer new transport links. Young people, many of whom once dreamed only of migrating abroad, are staying, convinced now that there's a future worth building right here. Captain Traoré's government isn't stopping at one victory. The administration has rolled out plans for additional highways, bridges, and feeder roads that will deepen the web of connections across the country. They're also investing in local manufacturing to supply future projects, aiming to make sure that even more materials are sourced domestically. Technical schools are expanding programs to train the next wave of skilled workers. It's an ambitious agenda, but the success of this first major road has proven that such ambitions are no longer just dreams. Meanwhile, neighboring nations keep sending delegations to study Burkina Faso's approach. Leaders from Mali, Guinea, Niger, and beyond are keen to learn how careful planning, disciplined budgets, and unwavering political will turned an unlikely promise into a national triumph. If this model takes root elsewhere, it could mark the start of a genuine shift in how African countries pursue development, driven by local priorities, local talent, and local ownership. For many Burkinabes, this is the most hopeful sign of all, that what began as a single road might light the way for an entire continent to rethink how it builds and grows. A smallholder farmer in a dusty roadside village might not talk about geopolitical strategy or international finance, but when he sees his produce reaching the market on time, or his children coming home from a better school with new opportunities, he understands instinctively that something big has changed. It's fitting that this new chapter begins on a road. Roads lead somewhere. They open up new horizons. They pull isolated communities into the broader national story. And as Burkina Faso keeps laying down kilometer after kilometer of locally built, proudly owned highways, it's sending a clear signal far beyond its borders. Africa can do this, for itself, by itself. It's also sending a challenge to old assumptions. For too long, outsiders have framed Africa's story around lack and limitation. But here, in the concrete stretching across Burkina Faso's landscape, there's proof that when a nation trusts its people and its own potential, extraordinary things happen. So what comes next? More roads, more factories, more classrooms full of young engineers learning to build their own country. The ripple effects have only begun, and each new project will reinforce the lesson that real, lasting development grows strongest from local roots. We want to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe more African nations should follow this model? Let us know. And if you found this story inspiring, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next update on Africa's incredible journey.